That's right. You have downloaded Rewind-A-Dynamite, and that is the show that you have with John Pollock and Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
Hello, John. Welcome back.
Yes, I'm back. Where'd I go?
I don't know, off to do your life.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did do some life in between chats with you. It always
Yeah.
comes back to you. You're my true north.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. Yes, yes.
I wasn't trying to be sweet. But if that's how it was taken, then wonderful. Did you have a nice day?
I had a great day. Yeah.
Oh,
Been going on a lot of walks, with the baby, and man, we're like,
do you track your steps? Do you do that on your phone?
Do
you gotta make this entertaining for yourself,
John. Do I track my steps? Everything I do is being tracked now. Everything I'm saying, every breath I take is being tracked. Every skin cell that I'm shedding is being tracked by this device right here. So of course my steps are being tracked. Of course.
I just spilled coffee like all over myself.
Oh,
so
okay. Well,
sure.
anyway, so yeah, no, we're doing 10K steps, here and
Jesus.
there. It's not that much, I think, for a lot of people, but it's nice because the
10K is a good number. If you got I used to have a Fitbit. I lost like 4 of those things, and I just got annoyed with them. I do have it on my phone now, so it's a lot easier. But I never check it, so I don't know what I do each day.
But we're trying to take advantage of the weather. It's warm enough to kind of walk in, but not too hot that you'll be sweating afterwards. So. Yeah.
This feels warmer later in the year than usual. Usually in November, it's not this nice out.
I don't even keep track anymore. Oh. I don't even know what.
Well, someone else is keeping track for you. They track the weather too. They track everything now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How was your Wednesday?
Oh, today sucked. I woke up and I felt like somebody had taken a hammer to my head. That's how I woke up. It just the worst headache, and it just was like full on like migraine by the morning. I was just a mess until about 3:30 this afternoon.
You get this a few times a year, right? These migraines.
This wasn't one of the worst ones. There's ones where I'm just I'm incapacitated. I can't do anything. I at least could work and stuff today, but it was just terrible. Just really annoying and such. So I don't know necessarily what the cause of it was, but that was my battle today. My head.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, I'm doing okay now, so all's good. All's good.
Well, good. Okay.
That's it. Dynamite added some matches to Full Gear. That was it. You want some spoilers? Let's read some spoilers and we'll get out of here.
QXT's nightclub.
That's it. QXT's nightclub. Man, are they?
Hey guys.
The amount of publicity that we have given to the Q, X, and the T. Maybe we should have brought our own factory member like QXT Marshall to this as a special guest or something like that.
Oh yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could have gone there, and you did.
I did, and we hope you go there on Saturday, November the 19th. postwrestling.com/live. I know that there is a section of people out there that are they cannot wait till November 20th, and we're not just throwing this at people because I know that if you're not attending live, it's full-on FOMO time that you are going through, that you are just, God, I wish I could live vicariously through all of these people at QXT's nightclub on Saturday, November the 19th, because I know that I'm going to be thinking of Braden and Davey getting up on stage, having one of their so well-received games. I want to know every answer to John Pollock's Q&A alongside Wai Ting. I want to hear about how Post Wrestling started. I want to hear about those email exchanges. Was there really going to be a stage show involving Post Wrestling that Wai Ting was concocting in June of 2018? All of this you can find out if you show up live on Saturday, November the 19th. Tickets available, coffee mugs available, a live Post Wrestling band in the house. We're going to have WH Park assessing everyone's fashion choices as they walk into the building. We're going to have it all. Mike Murray with we're going to have the whole Murray clan is going to be in Newark, I understand.
From what I understand too, yeah. So yes.
That's we're all going to do some Moderna with Chris.
I don't know about that. Now you're really over promising, but okay. Yeah, you've kind of said it all.
postwrestling.com/live. Join us. We're looking forward to it. Today we have, let's quickly give a heads up because on Thursday, everyone here at Post Wrestling, they're going to find religion and spirituality through Wai Ting, Jordan Goodman and Neil Flanagan. They're going to be going live with a special edition of the Wellness Policy. I'm looking forward to this one. As someone who attended Catholic school for the formative years of my life way, I look forward to this take on religion in the modern world.
Well, I am too, John. I mean, I don't really know what much to expect, so I'll be joining the conversation with Neil and Jordan, and we'll be talking about really a kind of everybody's sort of own unique experience or lack thereof with religion and spirituality. What do you think of this graphic here, John?
I knew instantly. I think you get most inspired for this show with your graphic choices.
Yeah, well, you got to see the group chats that I have with Neil and Jordan. It's really a group effort here. You know, it's almost like a little focus group trying to decide what we use for the show.
How many group chats are going on within our world?
Billion.
How many are you involved with post people? How many group chats are you in?
Group chats? I don't know. I don't think I have too many. I'm not much of a group chatter. Maybe
too many. That means you have at least more than one.
Can I say something?
You can always say something. That's what I rely on.
Right. On the topic of I guess group chats, I obviously I always appreciate it when people, you know, reach out, especially when they're people that are like mutual friends of you and I. But I gotta say, like, I don't love it when people message both you and me together. Okay. And it's like, I don't know why. Like, you know, and we'll just say it, like Damien earlier, like, you know, messaged us this morning or like yesterday morning. Wonderful comment, really sweet comment about like one of our shows. And it's like, and there weren't many responses from you and I. Whereas, like, I think if he messaged each of us individually, I mean, I texted him like for like, you know, 30 minutes the other day. And I get the sense you feel the same way. Why is that, John? Why is there that discomfort?
What I want to ask you as a follow-up is, how many times, this is more so an email thing, but it also extends to messages, do we get each sent something? You'll eventually reply, and then I reply within like 20 minutes because I feel like obligated to chime in as well once you respond. Like it's an obligation where I will just let it just sit for a week.
Oh, well, I mean, that's understandable. You know, the emails are kind of pressing. But I don't know, like, I suppose, like,
you want to have your own conversations with these people. You don't want to be tied to me 24/7.
I can understand why people would just, you know, message to the both of us at once. But it's almost like, you know, when it becomes like a, you know, a message sent to two people, it's almost like a big room. Now you're trying to having a shout inside, you know, a big room. It's like, you know, going to dinner and just sitting across from one person, and then going to a dinner as a big group and having to shout across the table to try to talk to that same person.
Right. Yeah. That's that is a group chat dynamic that you have to work around. Maybe these group chats are not for you.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is I think John and I very much just both need our full attention, our own personal time. We're very needy like that.
Okay. So Damien, just call me. I'm fine with however he wants to communicate, but Wai Ting, he's got his boundaries. That's what we're establishing at this point. It was a very nice message though. Let's get into some news. So the wellness policy, Thursday at 3. Okay. I have some updates. So we're doing Rewind to SmackDown on Friday. Saturday, it is Postmarks with Kate from Montreal. We can break the news. Kate from Montreal making her Postmarks debut. I have heard this could be an award-winning edition of Postmarks as they celebrate 1 year of marking the posts.
That is correct. Yeah, Bruce and David like always do a tremendous job. And you know, that is a group message or from earlier today that I think was a very fitting message sent.
Look at Wai now going through the Rolodex. How many people have I offended in this last 30 seconds?
But you know, like for somebody that I talk to, I would say on a pretty regular basis, at least monthly, you know, in Kate from Montreal, I don't know that much about her, you know, outside of, I think, our conversations about professional wrestling. And from the brief show description that I've seen from these two, like I'm going to learn so much about Kate from Montreal, and I'm very excited for this episode.
So that's dropping on Saturday.
On the cafe feed. Yes.
The cafe feed, correct. But it's available for everybody. So you can just go join the cafe. Just join the cafe. Do that. Do us a solid. Join the cafe. Your life will change. Okay. It's like getting like laser eye surgery. Okay. There's before, there's after. Once you get the cafe, be like, oh, I get it now. This is awesome.
Yeah.
You can message both of us afterwards. We'll give you our numbers. So Saturday night is UFC 281 from Madison Square Garden. Now, I have made the executive decision over the last couple that we will do these on Sunday afternoon because the Saturdays have gotten very late. I also have extremely early Sundays that I have to get up around 6 a.m. So Sundays have worked out very nice, less pressure, watching the pay-per-view, can take my notes, don't have to be racing afterwards. It's a very Dynamite-esque experience on these UFC nights. So yesterday, I get a notice in my mail that on Sunday, my entire street, the power's going to be out from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. on Sunday. I was like, what? You can just do this unilaterally. Take the power out for our whole street on a weekend. You're doing this to me. And I'm thinking, damn it, I'm supposed to be doing this UFC show on Sunday. And then it goes to, I was like, I wonder if Wai would let me use his house. But then I recalled, you're going to see a movie on that Sunday. Nor do I think that your current living conditions are prime for a guest to be coming over to record. My parents' Wi-Fi or cable, very, very unreliable. So we are in.
You're going to Sudbury.
I am not going to Sudbury. I am not going to Sudbury. Eric's welcome to come over here, but that really defeats the purpose because I have no power on Sunday. So we are figuring out a start time as we speak for this start of this UFC 281 show. You are going to get a post show this weekend. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm going to overcome my city turning on me and trying to disable all connections to electricity on Sunday. This is infuriating me, and I'm only getting a few days notice for this. I mean, this should be 2 weeks. 2 weeks I got to prepare to have no power for hours upon hours. What's going on here?
I don't know, man. I don't know. The world is in shambles. You know, people are paying for blue check marks. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what you're walking into.
I typed in Twitter today and I just saw a giant bonfire. That's what Twitter looks like right now. It just looks like the place is burning down. I'm all for it. I'm okay with it.
It's kind of more fun now, actually. I kind of like the chaos.
It's like, you know what? This has been an interesting experiment, and it's time to just burn it down and see what remains, what survives this.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's just destroy it.
Actually, I don't know if he'd be burning. It'd be more electric fuel.
I guess you're right. He does have that leg up on things. So there you have it. That's the latest. Now let's move on to actual news items. Anything to add, Wai, before we move on? Do you have any,
this is going to be a 5-hour show. I already know.
Sorry. I'm gonna cut it down. We're gonna get very brief, very quick. We're gonna start off with an update on Cain Velasquez, who has been in custody since February when he was first charged with attempted murder and multiple gun-related charges stemming from where he allegedly chased a vehicle that was containing a man who is accused, Harry Goularte, of sexually assaulting Cain Velasquez's son, and he allegedly opened fire on the vehicle. So
it was his son, not just another relative.
Yes, they have now come out and said his son.
Okay.
So, so he allegedly opened fire and did not strike the intended target, but rather the man's father-in-law. There were 3 people in the vehicle. So this was the whole incident that happened back in February, and he has been in custody ever since then. He has had 3 prior attempts trying to be able to post bail, and the judge turned him down 3 times. He got a different judge this week who gave a lot of restrictions on Cain Velasquez, but did grant him bail. It was set at $1 million, and Cain Velasquez is now out on bail. His next hearing will be November 21st, and this case is still to come. They've also, the Velasquez family, believe they filed a civil suit against Harry Goularte on top of this. So there's a lot of legal proceedings in the future for Cain Velasquez, not the least of which is the attempted murder charge and other charges he's facing directly attached to this. But he is home now for the first time since February. We've covered this throughout. It's an awful story, and one that, I mean, there's part of you that can understand a parent just losing control of any semblance of reality when you're going through something like that your child has been through. At the same time, any outcome where you might be pulled away from your family for 25 years to life is that's just not a solution for anyone. So this is at least a reprieve. He's home with his family. He's being monitored while he's at home. He's got to go through a bunch of certain, there's several restrictions in place and counseling that he is going to be going through as well. And yeah, this case will proceed. But when and if this goes to trial, which I mean, it will, it's going to be a major national story. I mean, there's going to be a lot of focus on this, just the nature of it, the celebrity involved with here is an ex-fighter, and I'm sure he's going to be painted a certain way by the media in terms of this, but it's also a guy that is facing 25 years to life with these charges.
It's incredibly sad. That's honestly all there is to say about it. It's a terrible situation for the entire family of Cain Velasquez. It's very difficult for me to even begin to be able to understand, the amount of anger and the feelings that man must have felt in that time. And I almost, you almost wonder if he didn't care about this end result, the blind range that it takes to go up to somebody with a weapon, knowing, maybe or expecting at least some of the repercussions that he's dealing with right now. It probably took a lot. And anyway, we'll let the courts decide this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real heartbreaking story, and on top of this is a child that needs a father, needs a mother. Yeah, it's like a child that has allegedly gone through this. That is, I mean, there's just so many ramifications to this. A very, very sad story indeed. So on Wednesday, a trailer was released for this Peacock documentary that we knew had been in development on Teddy Hart. And it was released today. And I mean, they're pretty much positioning this as Peacock's answer to Tiger King. And it's this wild, insane story. But what is new that we were not aware of is that WWE is in fact involved in the production of this. They listed, WWE put out this notice that they're working along with Blumhouse Television, who were the ones that were going to be involved in that Vince McMahon scripted series, the U.S. government versus Vince McMahon, and then Pyramid Productions and Plebeian Pictures. So this is going to be a docuseries that premieres November 22nd, Dangerous Breed, Crime, Cons, Cats. And it's been... this is the synopsis. Canadian filmmaker Frederick Croce spends 10 years trying to make a reality show about controversial independent wrestler and Persian cat breeder Teddy Hart. After accumulating years of footage, Frederick is shocked when multiple women whom he has been filming alongside Teddy describe disturbing accusations of sexual misconduct behind the scenes. As Teddy defends himself against growing allegations, his protege and ex-girlfriend Samantha Fiddler goes missing. With Samantha's family desperate for answers, Frederick re-examines the footage and seeks out the people closest to Samantha, leading to a dramatic current-day confrontation with Teddy Hart. Now, this story involving Samantha Fiddler, who was an ex-girlfriend that went missing in 2016, Polk County in Florida, they were the ones that had investigated this. They have never listed Teddy Hart as a person of interest. So I think that's worth putting in there. But this just looks like a documentary or a docuseries that is designed for Peacock to just like, this is their wild true crime series that feels like it's just going to be insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just looking at the headlines from E! News, attention Tiger King fans, Dangerous Breed will be your new true crime obsession. I mean, that's I think clearly maybe at least what Peacock is hoping for.
Peacock is looking for any kind of hit, and I guess they feel this is their best attempt at these true crime series. I mean, you get one that hits, it's a big deal for these services. I don't know if that is what this is going to become. I am surprised WWE is involved with this, that they are tied into it, because this feels like a wrestling attachment that they would run from in prior eras.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, Anybody listening to this, I think, has been well familiar with the name Teddy Hart in a long, long time. I guess, maybe being in the bubble, we don't exactly fully realize how strange the person might be, to the point where, you can consider him almost like, another, what is this dude called again? Joe, what? Joe, Tiger King dude. What's his name?
Oh,
Man,
God.
I forgot so much about that. Felt like a million years ago when we were all watching Joe Exotic. Okay, thank you. Yeah, wrestling is certainly full of these sort of characters, and I think we've always looked at Teddy Hart as just this, like, oh, okay, the kind of out there guy who's a very talented wrestler, certainly loves his cats. I believe, like, on one of our shows, mentioned training was in the works of training his cats to do spots, and it was just always a bit almost like a sort of a joke, that we would all kind of laugh at, while still having like a lot of respect, I think, for his in-ring ability. That's always been his story. This seems to be taking it to a much far darker level, and with some serious ramifications. I haven't really been following his story, at least, in our circles for the past several years, but it sounds like this documentary is exactly going to dive into that. You can expect the production to be really strong, but I too am surprised that the WWE would want to attach themselves to something like this, because of course they have the excuse of, them being able to say they've never employed Teddy Hart. He's not been one of their wrestlers.
I mean, he was in their developmental system on 2 different occasions. So, I mean, he has been under contract in WWE.
Okay. But there's enough he was never on their TV, like he's never been a prominent character, there's at least like enough sort of separation there. But to the general public, I think all they see is wrestling. And this is potentially something that can, dirty like just the sport itself or the art itself. And that to me in the past has been something that they've wanted to shy away from. But we haven't seen the show, and maybe they feel that there's a very compelling story here that they can, I don't know, make money from.
Another documentary is the one that Ric Flair is involved with. WWE's involved in this one. This is another one on Peacock that they are getting involved with. It's with Ric Flair and Tom Rinaldi from Fox Sports that are the ones producing this. And Ric Flair was asked about this on his podcast on his To Be the Man podcast, and this was his answer when addressing the plane ride from hell allegations that were covered on Dark Side of the Ring last year, and this was transcribed at Fightful. Flair says, one of the most difficult things I've ever been through in my life, personally, aside from health issues, is having 85,000 people tell me within 2 minutes that I wasn't on the opening of Raw or SmackDown after that bullshit from Plane Ride to Hell came out, which is all bullshit. It is explained thoroughly in my new documentary. I mean thoroughly. I am calling some people out big time. If they had left me off, I wouldn't mind it because I had my time and it's not my time anymore, but it is something that means a lot to me personally, as it does to everyone else. I'm sure they would tell you if they were being honest with you. It's a big deal. You're seen worldwide 3 times a week. So it seems like the issue that was most pressing to him was being removed from the signature. But at least this documentary, they will go in, like, this will be Flair's side of the plane ride from hell, which did generate a lawsuit in 2004, but was settled, and that was all covered in the Dark Side of the Ring episode. So, I mean, this will rehash this story of the plane ride from hell, which is certainly, I think, one of the more controversial episodes of Dark Side of the Ring that they have produced, given the allegations that were there, and Heidi Doyle speaking on the record about what she accused Flair of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say it was one of the episodes of Dark Side of the Ring that maybe had the biggest ramifications outside of the show itself. Led to a whole lot. To involving the Ric Flair's career and real, I would say, status. I mean, he did go on to just continue to wrestle. A lot of people cared about that match afterwards, but he hasn't, as far as I know, like, been legally reprimanded for anything. So that gives him the ability to tell his side of the story in similar fashion through a documentary, and he gets to say his piece, and we await to see what his defense is.
Ratings from Monday. Raw did 1,593,000 viewers, a 0.43 in the demo. So they were up from last week's Halloween episode. And this went against the Monday Night Football game between Baltimore and the New Orleans Saints. There was an 18% dropout throughout the show in both viewers and the demo. So it was not on the higher end of Raw numbers during football season, but at least an improvement from last week. But a pretty sizable dropout in the third hour. Throughout the show, women 18 to 49, 1 in 4 women in that demo tuned out from hour 1 to hour 3, which is a very high amount when it comes to dropouts throughout the show. But that was Raw's number going against Monday Night Football. And, you know, they started off like they were doing some very competitive numbers against Monday Night Football. It's softened a little over these last couple of weeks, which I think is also correlated with, I think, a little more criticism of the Raw product over these last few weeks, that it's sort of settled into a show that is, you're sort of seeing more.
Not good.
I mean, there's elements of it that I think are improved, but I think these last couple of weeks, I think there's been a lot of tropes that they have fallen back into that has worn thin on people, and stories too that I think have fallen under a lot more criticism, even compared to SmackDown, which I think is greatly boosted by what's going on with the Bloodline, which is the hottest thing in the company. And Raw does, you know, you can look at some of their big players being down, but it has lacked that big personality, that big act that SmackDown has in comparison.
Yeah, and I myself am trying to ask if it's simply because we're more used to, you know, all the changes that Paul Levesque brought with him, and now we can start to maybe, you know, see the show more for what it is, or has it been the show just actually getting worse than when it just kind of came back, you know, after SummerSlam. I I don't know. I think, you know, there often maybe tends to be a bit of a lull, you know, toward this period before we head into WrestleMania season. You're not getting some of those big stars that I think, you know, you probably want to have heading into WrestleMania season.
Your biggest acts are like Bloodline and Bray Wyatt, and they're off on SmackDown. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if I'd put Ronda Rousey in that category anymore, but I mean, it's, you know, certainly, you know, Raw, it's Rollins, it's Bobby Lashley. It's like, you know, when you couple the fact that you're down Randy Orton, Becky Lynch, Cody Rhodes,
Edge, you know,
Edge,
a part-timer.
even a smaller character, Ray, but was in like a prominent program at the time, and I think that's lessened a bit too. You know,
Kevin Owens.
Kevin Owens has been off for several weeks, so it's like it's some key components that when you add them up, you know, it's a hit to Raw when you're down all that star power on Mondays, and you're getting shows like you did this past Monday. NXT on Tuesday was maybe the more interesting number. So they were only down 1% in viewers with 664,000. They were up 11% in the demo, and this was going against all of the election coverage of the midterms on Tuesday. It had no impact on this NXT number. Like, this held up very well in comparison. I mean, women 18 to 49 were up 23% this week. Their 18 to 34 number equaled their highest mark since September. So, I mean, they did well, not even just comparing week to week, but going back, you know, months in terms of that 18 to 34 number. There was a lot of NXT fans that, you know what, the fate of the country, not as pressing as whether Zoe Stark and Nikita Lyons could get the tag titles in their final chance against Katana Chance and Caden Carter.
I think we know the story by now. You know, if you're watching NXT up until this point, there's nothing that can happen on this planet in our existence that'll pull you away from keeping up with this product. You know, they have a very loyal core fan base, and this doesn't maybe surprise me.
I expect Dynamite to be hurt more by the election tonight and the night after than NXT going against the live coverage the night of, as the returns are coming in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dynamite, of course, will have its core base as well, but you know, it's trying to grow beyond that. Whereas I think it's more of an indictment for NXT. I mean, they should be very, very happy that they have this core level, but have they been able to exceed beyond that when there isn't competition like this past week?
Have you been watching any of Tales from the Territories? Have you seen any of the episodes this season?
I have not, unfortunately.
I've watched some of them. I watched the this week I watched the one from a few weeks ago on Florida, which I thought was a really interesting show, especially the last portion on Eddie Graham, especially towards the end, where they talked about the fact that he had been an alcoholic and went like 13 years clean. And then towards the end, they just said like this guy was a tremendous individual when he was, not drinking, but a monster when he was. And they had some pretty sadistic stories involving Eddie Graham and just how the business was at that time, which is not an excuse for it, but stories of, bringing guys down to the gym that wanted to try guys out, and they would just stretch these dudes. And granted, there could be some embellishment here, but Steve Kern recalls a story of locking the door, and this guy is running for the doors and he can't get out as Eddie Graham just comes and just beats the shit out of him. And just these stories, and I don't doubt that there is validity to many of these stories when, especially in a territory like that. But Eddie Graham is a figure that I wish more was kind of looked into, especially his latter years. I mean, it was a very tragic end to his life, but it just seems someone extremely influential, and you never got that big, deep dive of like a book or a documentary into Eddie Graham. And I think, a lot of people are not around anymore that work so closely with him, but he's a really fascinating figure at a time, and not just in Florida, but his time in New York, really like one of the major power brokers in the NWA. So that's the one I've watched lately. Last thing is UFC 281 that I will try and watch this weekend, power permitted. And I just want to talk about just some of the stories going into this card on Saturday. It's headlined by Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira for the UFC middleweight title. So the backstory here is that they had two fights when they were both kickboxers. The first fight in 2016 saw Pereira win what was a pretty close fight, won it by decision. And then they had a rematch the next year that Adesanya was doing very well in the fight and got brutally knocked out by Pereira, who has now made the leap over to MMA. And just 3 fights into his UFC career, he is getting this title fight against Adesanya. And they've done a great job of promoting this fight with the backstory. If you've not seen the Countdown special, it was very strong because they have all the kickboxing highlights of their fights. And it's some spectacular stuff, especially with Adesanya. But you do have a great story here is this dominant middleweight champion, and he has these blemishes from kickboxing. And now this guy is coming over to fight him in MMA. And this is a very winnable fight for Alex Pereira. Like, this is one where this is very much a test for Adesanya. And there was a very interesting series of interviews on Monday on the MMA Hour where his coach, Eugene Behrman, shared, and like, Wai, you've been around enough of these coaches in MMA that, I mean, they give you so little, or it's just greatest camp ever, never been better. I mean, he goes out there and he talks about this camp. It was rough because he's got, there's 4 city kickboxing guys, including Adesanya, on this card. And at one point in the camp, Behrman pretty much has this meeting and he just tears everyone apart. They're being complacent. He said it was pretty brutal what he had to do. And so Eugene Behrman comes on the show, and then Ariel has all the other fighters on the card come one by one onto the show for a sit down. So we get all their perspectives of this just destruction of a speech by Eugene Behrman. And it was really like some fascinating stuff. And you don't typically get that insight into a camp, especially during a fight week. Eugene Behrman is a unique individual in that sense. He just kind of laid it all on the table of like how he was just felt certain guys weren't performing well enough, weren't doing enough. And he even ranks the fighters, like who came on board. It was like Dan Hooker was first on board. Adesanya was the last one to buy into my critiques. And then Adesanya comes on and he pushes back a bit about this. So it was some very interesting,
was he eating muffins?
No muffins were consumed during this at all. But Cupcake Man Punk was maybe the spirit of him was certainly here in Eugene Behrman. So that's the main event. Strawweight title fight. Carla Esparza, who is coming off a brutal, terrible fight with Rose Namajunas, where she won the title back, is taking on Zhang Weili. People are just completely dismissing Carla Esparza in this fight. Zhang Weili is around a -400 favorite, and she should be the favorite. There are more ways for Zhang Wei Li to win this fight than for Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza, though, is a very good wrestler, and I've seen enough of her fights where she has been overlooked, and her wrestling has shut down opponents. I'm not saying that's going to happen in this fight, but there are some very wide odds in this fight, and it seems that everyone just assumes she is keeping this belt warm for Zhang Wei Li. So we will see what happens there. And then the other major fight is Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler in a lightweight fight that has virtually zero chance of not being among the best fights of the year. Poirier has won 7 of his last 9, but he is coming off that loss to Charles Oliveira last December and has the most knockouts in UFC lightweight history. Chandler has had 4 fights in the UFC since coming over from Bellator and they have been action-packed every single time out, and is coming off that knockout win over Tony Ferguson where he damn near kicked his head off in May at UFC 274. So that should just be a tremendous, tremendous fight on Saturday night. And then you've got Frankie Edgar in his retirement fight against Chris Gutierrez, and Dan Hooker, the aforementioned, the first guy to buy into Eugene Behrman's changes against Claudio Puelles on the main card. So I'm looking forward to this. It's a very good show. Dominic Reyes is fighting on the undercard. Molly McCann, who's a big underdog, she is also fighting. This should be a very good card. I hope I get to talk about it on Sunday.
At some point on Sunday, you and Eric, I'm sure, will be
what's the window of what's the latest you can do a review of a show after? I feel like there's
10
only
years.
so many. 10 years, really? Okay.
I mean, we do it all the time. I mean, before Monday, I think, or before Raw, I would say. So I think you got time.
We'll get it done by Sunday, latest. So anyway, there you go. Let's get into tonight's episode of Dynamite. How was the show before the show?
Yeah, good. I think a good 8 out of 10.
Okay, maybe 7.
7? No, I'd say it was better than that.
The show before the show.
Yes.
Dynamite was in the Agganis Arena on Wednesday night. Around 3,500 tickets out for this event per WrestleTix. So another major market, well down. They were around, this is where they were for the Dynamite after WrestleMania weekend, where they did FTR and the Young Bucks. And that, I believe, was around like 5,500 or so that were out. So down like 2,000 roughly. So, I mean, this is a trend for these AEW returning markets. And starting things off is the 8-man tag with the Acclaimed and FTR against Swerve in Our Glory and the Gunn Club. Did you see the Kieran Culkin lookalike in the front row?
No.
They cut to this guy, and I swear to God, it was Kieran Culkin, but he was never identified. And I would think if Kieran Culkin was actually in the crowd, they would have made a big deal or any kind of deal out of it. If you go back and watch during the entrances, this guy was like a dead ringer for Kieran Culkin. I rewound it. Okay. I was like, that's got to be Kieran Culkin.
Is he a wrestling fan? We know his brother is.
Kieran Culkin, I think, has been at shows before. He might have even been at AEW shows before.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he asked not to be shown.
Well, they cut to him. This person, but they just never identified him. So, I mean, it could be a guy that just looked a lot like him, and maybe they hoped, hey, maybe people think it's Kieran Culkin.
Yes.
Moving on.
Yes.
FTR, they noted coming off their title defense at Battle Autumn over the weekend, and Tony Schiavone picks up that there was no fist bump between Swerve and Keith Lee before the match. So pay attention to that. Max Caster comes out. It was a busy week, so he rapped about delivering more L's to the teams than Tom Brady. He's got receipts like he's Herschel Walker, and will make them say sorry like Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, all this kind of flew over my head. I don't know. I don't watch really any sports except this. So,
well,
you get it all?
You probably don't want to be lumped with Herschel Walker and Kyrie Irving this week. That would probably be a good way to assume one's projection to the world.
Okay.
Billy Gunn then races down the ramp. His hands are taped, so they are honoring our plier angle. And he attacks Swerve. The whole place is chanting daddy ass. Like, this guy was the most popular of everyone out here at the beginning. And they note his good friend BJ Whitmer is out here to stop Billy Gunn.
Well, they gave him the run-in spot, and yeah, he is incredibly beloved at the moment. So I thought it was really well designed, and I thought it was a good way to somewhat undo I think his last week's appearance, where coming right off of the attack, he was incredibly jovial and just celebratory, when he should have been like incredibly sad. The man, he was kidnapped, had pliers, breaking his hands in a very traumatic event.
Maybe
So
it was a delayed reaction.
yeah, I guess it could be. Yeah.
You ever cut off your finger?
Well, he didn't have his fingers cut off. He had them broken. Yeah.
Maybe he thought, this isn't so bad. And then, 2 weeks later, it's like, man, this is not healing as fast as I thought. It's a pretty shitty thing that this guy did to me in my hands.
Sure. Yeah.
It does happen. You think we're going to get Billy Gunn and BJ Whitmer together at some point?
Is BJ Whitmer still wrestling?
Well, maybe he could come out as his new partner, BJ James.
Ooh, very nice.
I really enjoyed, in particular, Austin Gunn in this match. This guy just bumps around all over the place. I think it's like the Gunn Club. I like their role. And I think in particular, Austin Gunn, like, he plays a great little like chicken shit heel that just he just bumps all over the place for these guys. And I thought he was kind of, he was very enjoyable, I found, in this match.
I agree. I thought the Gun Club stood up to me too. Like, let's remember, these are two guys, at least, with Colton, like he only began his career in AEW. And considering the lack of experience being in there with people like FTR and Swerve and Keith Lee, like, I really think they hold their own. And I think charismatically, they have that exact same sort of obnoxious energy that the New Age Outlaws had.
There is a Boston Scissor Party, and then the Acclaimed back into FTR, and they stare at one another, and we go into the picture-in-picture. During the commercial break, W. Morrissey appears and drills Dax Harwood with a boot. So we got this recap after we came back. Bowens gets the tag, and he's hit with a big rig by the Guns. And the announcers ask, why would they hit him with the big rig? To annoy FTR? Yeah, that's probably why. And Caster makes the save. We get a standoff with all 8. And then Dax, we get a bunch of spots to the floor, starting off with Swerve with a tornillo. Then Dax superplexes Austin onto everybody. There's a sharpshooter applied to Austin. Colton breaks it up. He's doing the suck it signs, and then gets caught with the arrival by Bowens, a mic drop, and then finally FTR hits the big rig on Colton for the win in 12 minutes and 21 seconds. To anyone in Canada that watched this on TSN2, this was a nightmare to watch. The picture was fine, but the audio was a mess. And thankfully, this was rectified after this match, because I was like, this is going to be a hell of a struggle to get through this whole show, where it was just chopping in and out for the whole match. You could barely put together the commentary.
I thought about jumping to an illegal stream at some point. Thankfully, the action, I think, was so visual, though. You could pretty much tell what was happening. Just
it didn't kill it. It was just you're not paying attention really to the commentary. Yeah. But the picture was fine. I'll take the picture over the audio.
A good, fun, high-paced opening match. These baby faces in the ring in the Acclaimed and FTR are both incredibly over. They did tease some tension between the two, so they're almost, trying to do their best to like tease the the Swerve and Lee versus Acclaimed match. It could be anybody facing FTR after that. So I think they're doing a decent job of that. But for me, it was, again, the Guns that kind of really stood out, like for guys, again, that are relatively new into this thing. They're really finding their place in the division, and they're definitely holding their own.
Yeah, I was curious if they were going to insert either one of these teams into the match, if they were going to put FTR into this match at Full Gear the way they were playing this.
It's possible, but I think you want to finish the trilogy off first, like you want to actually close out the 3 singles matches before getting to the FTR.
So they had advertised that MJF was going to speak on the show, but the way they did it was different, where they recorded a bit where he went to Barstool Sports and appeared on Pardon My Take, and he has asked a question about the recent attack by the Firm. And MJF answers the question that he should not be traveling if he wants to be 110% at Full Gear. He doesn't want to be perfect. He wants to be above. He wants a 10% jump on optimal health. He calls this the most important match in the history of the sport to crown the next face of the next generation, and compares it to Sammartino, Dusty, Flair, Hogan, Austin, Rock, Cena. And that is who MJF is. And he cuts a promo on Moxley, states that he is unathletic, but respects him for working hard, beating the odds to become the best pro wrestler. But he's going to lose that handle November 19th. I was born to be the professional wrestler and bring pro wrestling back to where everyone is talking about it. I'm sick of waiting my turn and having the spotlight taken from me in my big moments. And he goes through big matches and pay-per-views he's had where they were overshadowed by a neck tattoo, Matt Hardy falling like Humpty Dumpty, Jericho falling off the cage at the first Blood and Guts, and overshadowed by a press conference. And at Full Gear, the devil gets his due.
Really excellent promo, of course, with MJF. Almost like a very classic babyface promo. It must have been awkward for the other guy standing in the room, eh? Like, you just asked him a question, then MJF starts talking for like 5 minutes on his own. But
I was waiting for maybe he brings up the press conference and we hear like a voice bubble off screen. We're not going to talk about that.
It was a very good, almost very old school classic babyface promo. So good, and I think so babyface that you almost think this is a guy trying to fool you. And certainly like doctors telling him that he shouldn't be traveling to heal sounds very much like I can't go to school today because I can't type of excuse. So I think there's still a shred of doubt about what this man is truly up to.
Yeah, I've learned this when I have asked Max, how's your cough? My cough? Is auditioning
Maxwell Jacob
for his
Pollock?
Oscar? Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, it was a very good promo here from MJF. I like kind of doing something like a different style. I do think he should be on next week's show, and you can be creative in how you do it, but I would certainly want MJF on next week's show. But it was interesting because tonight was really those go home promos. I don't know what the next step is, especially if you're not going to have MJF in the arena next week, but maybe he should be.
I think he has to be.
I do too.
Like it's
maybe he shows up at the end or does something.
I don't know. Like, what is your temperature on like how hot this match feels right now? And really, in Full Gear as a whole,
I think that it's a very good show on paper. I think that this is a good build. I question after the pay-per-view, if this is all designed for a big MJF turn, maybe you can justify this build. But I do feel like doing kind of these dual babyface builds, I don't know if it's the most effective way to build this. And if you were going this way, the one that jumps out at me is right near the beginning of this program is MJF cutting that promo and mocking Moxley for his alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like, once you've introduced a line like that, there's none of this kind of like 50-50 thing of like presenting these two. Like Moxley has this respect for him. It's like, it's almost like you have crossed the line now with that kind of a statement.
But wrestling fans have very short-term memories.
Well, I don't think the John Moxley character should have a short-term memory when something like that is brought up.
Well, Moxley still hates him. They still hate each other very much. But we as an audience are supposed to respect Max's determination. But is that conducive to building the rivalry? I don't exactly know if they went for a straight heel babyface story, if it would have been better. But I mean, I certainly do know that his lack of presence on the show will hurt it, especially next week.
Yeah, this is going to be a very tough pay-per-view in terms of outside of Forbidden Door. This is a CM Punk-less pay-per-view for them.
With that sort of whole thing still very much hanging a dark cloud over it all. Like much of the audience's attention is still very much on that whole ordeal. Yeah.
The Elite is a big add-on to the show. I feel by the time we get to that weekend next week, I feel like that will feel like the biggest thing on the show. And maybe it already does to people. Like I think that the way they're doing it, I think it's a good build. We'll get into that as well. But I do feel that's going to feel like the biggest thing going into Saturday.
And then MJF will have something else to complain about.
You're right. Yeah. In his hometown of Newark, New Jersey, as they're pushing constantly.
The tri-state area.
Stokely Hathaway, there was a video, and he thought that MJF and him wanted the same thing, but he's dick riding Jon Moxley. And that's the wrong crime to commit without a license. So he doesn't need a best friend. He can do this by himself, and he will see Max in hell, win, lose, or draw.
Okay. I mean, so that appears to be the program after Full Gear, or this could all just be a misdirection. And if it is, in fact...
The firm just destroyed this guy as a plot.
Sure. I would hate that.
I don't like that aspect at all.
Too.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I at least don't close the door on it.
MJF and Regal coming together, that's been set up. Like, that, to me, would be a great turn for all of this. The firm just working with him, and we saw the beatdown.
Yeah.
I hate that stuff. I don't think people would respond positively to that.
We'll see how they explain it.
Ethan Page with Stokely Hathaway versus Eddie Kingston, who had Ortiz in his corner. This is the first title eliminator tournament match. And Taz explains that the winner will face the winner of Bandito or Roosh on Rampage. And then Excalibur corrects him, stating Roosh and Bandito will have their match on Rampage, and then the winner will face the winner of this match. So Taz just responds, so what are you correcting? What are you correcting? That's what I said. That's what I said.
Uh-oh.
It was great. They just slid this in there, but this is, pretty noteworthy, is that next week they will have information about their debut in the UK, which is coming in the new year. So some announcement next week about going to the UK, which is way overdue and was held up by the pandemic. But now's probably the time. You're seeing a lot of these, attendance figures, and it's ripe. It's a ripe market for them to go over there. Page is controlling throughout the commercial. Crowd's getting behind Eddie, who comes back with an exploder, applies the stretch plum, but Stokely gets onto the apron to distract the referee so he cannot see the tap. Ortiz then pulls Stokely down. Eddie lets go of the hold, misses with the Hurricane, and then a roundhouse kick lands by Page. They're noting his Taekwondo background, so his kicks are more lethal. And then Kingston bites him on the turnbuckle, gets crotched, and it culminates with Ethan Page hitting an Ego's Edge off the turnbuckle, dumping Kingston onto the mat, and pins him in 9 minutes and 5 seconds.
Pretty impressive finish here, and fun match overall, as most Eddie Kingston matches tend to be, because the crowd just connects with him so well.
This was a big fall for Eddie Kingston coming off that turnbuckle. I mean, it was like...
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he's not a small person. Yeah. I mean, but I like the fact that it was, to me, a relatively clean finish here. I know there was a bit of distraction from Stokely at the end, but still, somebody on the level of an Eddie Kingston, who I think is relatively well protected in AEW, for Ethan Page to pin him in this fashion with a devastating move, 1, 2, 3 in the center of the ring, tells you they have very high hopes and they have a lot of confidence in Ethan Page being able to go far into this and further beyond this tournament.
I think people are expecting Ethan Page to win this tournament, which if this guy is being built up for a big title match on television, I don't know if I even would have put the tap out spot in. I understand that you're trying to hedge here for Eddie Kingston. I think there's also certain times where it's more about the guy that needs the big elevation here. But winning this tournament will be...
He got it, though. To me, like a win over Eddie Kingston was a big elevation for Ethan Page.
So he will face either Bandito or Roosh, and they've got to run through this tournament next week, because this was the start of this tournament that has to get to the finals in 10 days.
Well, really, it's just 2 more matches to take place on TV, and then you have the match at Full Gear, right?
Yes.
Like, these 3 matches are taking place all on Rampage. So Rampage will have 3 tournament matches.
So they did do the angle where Ricky Starks was laid out. And then when they were teeing up the Rampage matches, they did not list Archer and Starks. So I don't know. Okay. They're taping it as we speak. So, well, by the time people are listening to this on Thursday morning, you can see what the results are. But it was noted, like, unless I missed it, things go quick. But I was paying attention to the graphics, and they did not put up Archer and Starks, and that angle would suggest to me that, I mean, why do that angle unless...
maybe a buy.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, or at least a replacement, because they did list quite a few matches for Rampage that I don't know if you could necessarily fit another tournament match in there. But the other two for sure you're getting, and probably like what would you say, like Ethan Page and Bandito in the next round?
Yeah, I would say so. I would hate to see Bandito, in his first, I think, real match, as a signed talent come out with a loss. But you have to ask Ethan Page versus Bandito. To me, that's a tough one to call. I mean, Bandito, I think losing doesn't really hurt him that much, like especially if it's the next a heel that's supposed to take him out. So, I'm still going with Ethan Page, I think.
Renee is with Roosh and the Dark Order, and Jose says that Roosh is going to win this tournament and the title. Looks over to Renee and says, sorry. And then we'll give Preston Vance the first title shot while the other clowns will never get a shot. And Roosh tells Preston he doesn't give second opportunities, as John Silver calls him a Roosh bag.
You like that one?
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. I'm
ready for this shit to be done. Like,
I thought it was done.
Yeah, what did he need? Like he beat him didn't he beat him in a match where like
they were supposed to do the singles match where if I beat you, you go away, and then that got turned into the three-way, right?
Right.
For the All Atlantic title.
Yeah.
And Cassidy won, so I guess he was allowed to continue to bug him.
Yeah, I mean it's to me one of many ongoing mid-card feuds in AEW right now that I just that really should have been over a long time ago. I don't.
And Andrade's just off the face of the earth now. He's in like Miro land.
He's complaining about not being tweeted at for his birthday by AEW.
That's that's a pretty big offense.
Yeah.
Wardlow, his open challenge was answered by Ari Daivari, who is with Way's favorite character, Jeeves K. And
of course,
he wants to buy the TNT title. He did not accept
No,
this.
no, he didn't. He said he's willing to offer his butler's services in exchange for the TNT championship.
Okay, well, he also had money here. He was holding money. So I think it came with an offer too. But yeah, he was going to offer Jeeves to Wardlow so he can have his own servant, just like he was a servant to MJF. So Wardlow comes out with Samoa Joe. He dispatches Jeeves and then headbutts Daivari, makes a gun gesture, which I guess while Omega's gone, he can borrow this for at least another couple of days. And then power bombs him 4 times, and he wins in 1:48. Ari Daivari did not win the TNT title. Wardlow then calls out Powerhouse Hobbs and says, I finally have a suitable opponent for my title. And the TNT title will always be mine, and I'm going to take every title in this company. And all of a sudden, Samoa Joe looks down at his title. He's like, wait a minute. I can't remember. Are ROH and AEW the same companies? Are they all the same? F it. And he blasts Wardlow from behind. And I'm not going to say this was at the level of the WWE camera crew cutting away from Edge's first spear in 9 years when he came back at the Royal Rumble. But this is pretty damn close, where the contact to Wardlow, they cut to Hobbs missing the contact. I mean, this was of all times to like cut. So Joe kills Wardlow, and Joe is done. He applies the Coquina clutch. They do establish that this is not an alliance of Samoa Joe and Hobbs, because Hobbs says to Joe, I'll kick your ass too. So we need like a detective board with like the thread to just keep all these personal rivalries connected and figure out who is attached to who. But that's the end of Joe. We're never going to say Joe again.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Damn. What are the Gates of Agony going to fit in? That's what I want to know. Khan, Toa Leona, how do they fit in? Yeah, the question you're left with afterwards is Joe a heel? Was this a Joe heel turn? And I think they were making an effort to show you that was not the case. First of all, with, Hobbs saying that he still wants to face Joe. And I think Joe, like, motioning to the crowd, raising his arms up, very much told me that, like, he's still supposed to be a babyface. I thought they did a real...
Who hits you from behind?
Well, come on, man.
Very honorable.
Listen, when you need to check a man for, claiming to win every single championship, I think hitting from behind is justified.
Aren't these different companies? I'm sure he was excluding ROH titles. Wardlow's not going after these ROH belts. And if you want to win every belt, last I checked, there's about 85 tag titles. He needs a partner, doesn't he? This was for Joe. We're going to win some tag belts here. We're going to clean up.
Tag partners aren't that hard to find. But anyway, like, they set this in motion, maybe even earlier than Friday, but really on Friday with, Wardlow kind of pushing Joe aside in interviews and the Mark Henry interview and whatnot. And I think Joe's done a pretty decent job of acting in the background like he's pissed off, but without really acting pissed off until today with that line. So breaking that team up, I think maybe a bit earlier than I expected, John. What do you think is the direction for those two? I mean, a three-way, it looks like, right?
Well, that's what it feels like. It's to go to Wardlow and Hobbs would render this angle useless. And it just feels as though, well, we got to get everyone on the pay-per-view. That's sort of what this feels like. Like,
what about Brian Cage?
Sure, put him in too. Make it a 4-way.
And the Gates of Agony.
Yeah, make it a 6-way.
And the Kingdom.
Make it an 8-way. Who is this Kingdom you speak of?
The Kingdom, the newest
I missed a week.
There are a lot of people on the show, and Full Gear is going to be a big one too. But if the suggestion is that, like, do you feel like they hot shot at this just to get Joe on the show, or was this in the works a long time ago? Because I think they had some real, at least like some decent story building potential, for Wardlow and Samoa Joe.
They had spent several weeks on this Wardlow Hobbs program that it just felt like this was a necessity to get Joe involved, and it just felt too soon to be doing this with Wardlow and Joe.
Perhaps, yeah.
Renee is with the baddies, and Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose is official for Full Gear. Jade's going to handle her ass and handle it this Friday on Rampage. So double handlings coming up, and she's going to do something on Rampage with Nyla Rose.
She's going to do something on Rampage, yeah.
Yeah.
This is another feud that should have ended like 5 months ago. Like Nyla Rose stealing the championship and Jade trying to, play cat and mouse every single week, trying to chase this thing. I mean, oh man, it's not Dexter Lumis Miz level, but like I haven't been loving it,
Then the big segment, Tony Schiavone brings out Britt Baker and then brings out Saraya. And we get Saraya explaining that she has taken MRIs, CT scans, and unfortunately, for Britt, I'm 100% cleared.
Exactly like that. Exactly that delivery.
She says that AEW is her house, and Baker asks, is there anything more fickle than an AEW fan? As they're all behind Saraya here. And we go back and forth here. She calls Saraya a superstar who had the audacity to skip in here and call it her house. You didn't lay a single brick here. I'm everything you wished you could be because you left your house and walked into mine. And we don't take walk-ins. So, bitch, make an appointment.
Good lines.
Healthcare.
Should leave that in the voicemail for her dentistry.
That was great. Saraya's comeback. She states that Britt was handed her position by Tony Khan and fed QT's trainees. And you've only been in front of a camera for 3 years. You don't know what it takes to be a superstar or even a star. I traveled up and down in the UK for free because I loved it. I was hit by a car and wrestled the same day. I was turned down at places just for being a female. I started revolutions before they were a trend or wrestling was even a twinkle in your eye. And then I watched this woman turn into JBL as she listed off the arenas, almost the exact same arenas as Monday. I've worked the Garden, the O2, and a hidden gem that I don't know if anyone has the tape of. Paige worked the Tokyo Dome. When did we miss this? What she meant
she's speaking
Sumo
about
Hall.
the future. Maybe she's predicting she will somehow maybe get into stardom, for one of these crossovers.
Okay.
She meant Subo Hall, yes, and
She
the
meant
internet
Sumo Hall.
was dunking on her pretty hard,
I mean,
for this poor mistake.
it happens. She then explains how she was publicly humiliated in front of millions of people, battled a drug addiction publicly, and she gave her career and her neck for this business. You don't have a clue what it takes to make it. But I'm going to give you another opportunity handed to you on a silver platter. It's my comeback story, and it's the biggest match of your career because we're facing each other at full gear. And with that, Baker tries to attack Saraya, who stops her and hits the unidentified, formerly known as the Rampage.
Yeah, I guess you can't call it that anymore.
Or she could just use it on one show for AEW.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
We'll see what the name is. I don't have anything. So
yeah, really strong emotion here. Really strong promo from the both of them, but especially Saraya, rightfully coming out at the end of this. I think with with the feeling that she maybe is actually worth the hype. Like they started this whole thing back after All Out, and from that moment, I personally was so excited. I thought she was just like the perfect type of big personality, well-known mainstream figure that like an AEW women's division needed, and that coupled with like her comeback, I was just ready for like I think great storytelling, maybe great matches, and certainly great promos. And the night or the Wednesday after that, to me, made that segment in particular so disappointed because we got anything but that. Not only did we not get a very good promo like we got tonight from Saraya, the continued ambiguity of her clearance. I don't have an issue with them delaying the tease or teasing so that you ultimately built up to this week to finally announce that big sort of triumphant comeback moment at the end of the 5 years. But I felt like they did such a bad job of even teasing, like they kind of did shot certain angles to already kind of announce it, but like not necessarily announcing that like she's working towards it. It just really, I think, killed the hype. And that's really unfortunate because always at the end of it was going to be a moment like this where, Saraya Bevis like would go on TV to announce that she's finally ready. And the real emotion on her face, I thought was just so nice to see. You really felt it for the person after everything she's gone through. And then her mentioning everything else, public humiliation, battling drug addiction to finally come to this point. These are real accomplishments that she's overcome to get here. And I definitely feel like she won, much of the naysayers back with something like this. And this program finally feels to me like it's on an upward trajectory. I just wish that there was a bit more planning for the material leading up to this between All Out and this point. Before we get there, but by the time, listen, if the match is great, we'll forget about everything else.
Yeah, they really needed a segment like this. I thought Saraya her delivery was terrific in this. Like that emotion came through. And I will say when this promo started from Saraya, I was not liking the direction where it was more so like everyone watching this looks at Britt Baker as the top female in this company. And it started off as with, I'm from WWE, so I'm way bigger than you are. And to me, it took me back to the Punk press conference and just destroying Hangman and this minor league company full of children. Like that's the tone this took. So I was glad that it sort of veered into her personal story and what she has overcome, that by the end of this, I thought they got to the destination they wanted to be. And her delivery, I thought, was terrific here. Like it was when she announced that she was cleared, you could see like it was an emotional announcement for her. Overall, like this worked, but I was leery the way this was starting and getting into you're a superstar. And then, that I'm the bigger star because I came from the bigger company, which is not the message I want right now.
Yeah, the fact that what do you know about being a star because you've only been on TV for 3 years. 3 years is a long fucking time, to be on TV and leading an entire division. So to me, it's almost a line that kind of like nullifies, she was at the very top of AEW. She has arguably been at the very top of AEW in that division for 3 years. So you're saying nobody in this company is a star.
I mean,
by saying something like
Paige
that.
was only on the main roster for what, like 2014 to 17? Right. I mean, it was just a bit longer than that.
So, like there were certainly moments, I agree with you in Saraya's promo, John, where like I think it could have used some editing to get rid of some of that stuff. I would have liked to hear Saraya actually acknowledge Britt's accomplishments a little bit more. Talk about how you are at the top, Britt, and you're the person I'm trying to chase to get back to that spot after being away for 5 years. Like really put over your opponent before kind of setting yourself up as the babyface underdog.
Yeah, I think you could have certainly got rid of like, you're in this spot because Tony Khan gave it to you and you beat some scrubs from QT Marshall. It's like, well, then what are you beating on at the pay-per-view? Or conversely, if you fail, what are you failing to?
Right. You're also like talking to an audience that is already going to side with Britt Baker more than you, Saraya, because they've seen Britt Baker like claw her way up to the top. Like she really earned this spot because she's been so good week after week. So the audience has a lot more reason to care or side with Britt than they do Saraya. But I mean, there was enough good content from Saraya's promo that I think she won them back.
As I said, I feel they got to where they were, but this was not without its flaws at the beginning. But I think it was more important where they got to at the end, and this felt like a notable match for the pay-per-view by the time it was over with. Like this will be one of the more, like everyone's going to be very curious to see how she looks after 5 years.
Yeah.
We go to Sanjay Dutt and company thanking Cole Carter as they paid him for last week.
So
I feel this guy needs to wear a name tag. I think that everyone needs to be reminded of his name each week.
Yeah. So tell me what was this? So he's not part of this group?
That's what it felt like. They paid him for a week's worth of dressing up in the Sting outfit, probably his dry cleaning, and then
what was the point of all that?
To
like distract people, to set the scene for Jeff Jarrett. That was Jeff Jarrett's grand plan.
He was coming to attack. He was coming to attack Darby.
We're gonna hire a guy to dress up as Sting, so that he can unmask, so that I could sneak up from behind. Sneaking up from behind in a wrestling match is not that hard to do. I think this was way too elaborate. This was also like it just kind of set up for a kind of a negative moment with a pretty flat reveal last week, and one that didn't even result in anything because it just seems like he was just a 1 week hire. Like, what was it? What happened? What is this?
Well, he's with the Factory. We do establish that, so he's with Team Factory.
Now we did. I mean, last week we thought he had left the Factory.
He was just loaned out. He was available for hire.
Loaning. Okay.
This is how independent contractors work.
All right, sure. I think this sucked.
Danhausen, Cassidy, and the Best Friends walk in. This sets up Orange Cassidy defending his title against Lee Johnson. So the idea is like Orange Cassidy will just defend this at the drop of a hat. You don't have to convince him. You don't need a long promo. You want to fight him? Cool. It's done. And Lee Johnson will face him on Friday. And then Trent calls out to the scumbags, Lethal, Singh, and Dutt. And that sets up a match for tonight between Beretta and Jay Lethal. So that is our next match. Jay Lethal runs out, chop blocking the knee of Trent Beretta. If you listen to Tony Schiavone during this heinous attack, Tony is remarking, "I'm surprised more people don't do this. This is an effective technique." It's like, you should always chop block the guy from behind on the way to the ring. He's giving his back to you. Why don't more people do this?
I mean, the bell hasn't rung. There's no real sportsmanship in it. No code of honor if you're an ROH.
This was from behind. So on the Samoa Joe scale, this is fine. This is babyface material.
Okay. Yeah.
Trent gets sent over the steps and the ankle is stomped. Chuck and Danhausen come out, as do Singh and Dutt. Lethal comes off the top, lands the elbow on the knees. Trent hits a half and half off the top, running knee, and then goes for strong zero. But finally, the knee gives out. His knee had different recuperative abilities throughout this match. It was up and down. And then Singh and Danhausen get on the apron, and Dutt gets punched in the balls by Danhausen. Singh then sends Danhausen off the apron, and Lethal kicks Trent's injured knee, lethal injection, and pins him in 7 minutes and 17 seconds.
I thought the match was just kind of there for me. You know, it was like one of those AEW matches where, like, you know, the in-ring content will be good because these are two veterans who are both very good in the ring, but there's just no story or no real interest in the characters. Like, Trent is somebody who I think, depending on the opponent, perhaps, and maybe depending on the circumstance, people could really get behind, but he has no storyline right now to speak of. He's just another body. And Jay Lethal is the guy who's feuding with Darby, and the lone wrestler or at least the lone full-time wrestler in a faction of 4.
Well, Shivani interviews them, and Dutt says, I run this place. We delivered our big surprise last week, and they bring out the Hall of Famer, Jeff Jarrett, the last outlaw. And Jarrett explains that when a friend calls, a friend shows up. We put a plan together, and that started last week. And he explains his connection, signing Jay Lethal to his first contract, and he oozed machismo, mentioning his wins over Ric Flair, Sting, and being a Grand Slam champion in ROH. While Dutt has an IQ of 181, and they took over promotions around the globe. And my good pal Satnam Singh, he's 7'5" and doesn't wear red skinny jeans while being produced by a banana nose circus.
Banana nose. That's one I've not heard before.
That's what Terry Funk used to call Ric Flair.
Oh, okay.
But I have no idea what that ties into other than this knock against Braun Strowman.
Well, a man with a big nose is I think what a lot of people read it as.
Okay.
Who works in that company.
I guess that was his shot at Paul Levesque and Braun Strowman then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how a lot of people read it. Red skinny jeans. Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting.
Only one description suits that one. Maybe that was a receipt for the floppy floppers line over the weekend for Braun. Did you see?
Oh, this? Yeah, could be. Yeah,
the floppy floppers. That's a man that's going to miss Twitter. He's done remarkable things for his reputation on there.
He was made for this app. Yeah.
And then the challenge is issued to Darby Allin, but we can't really get to the gist of this challenge because the producer is wrapping up Jeff. So Jeff threatens this producer and then just walks him down. And this producer hightails it into the crowd. And this just ended very abruptly. I just thought this was going to be a guitar spot. And
same.
It was just like they just went all the way down the aisle and then he left through the crowd and we cut. It's like, what happened here?
I guess I don't know the reason why you would introduce, this sort of non-character other than just as a person to take one of Jarrett's shots. And what was the point of this? Was it just to simply show how threatening Jeff Jarrett could be to camera crew? Was it just to make Jarrett
it was really
feel
flat?
Threat?
So I don't know. This felt like some miscommunication because this just seemed primed for the guitar spot. Like, what else would you be doing here?
Dude, I don't know, man. I can't explain this entire faction, John. They have had a lot of TV time, but it's always been a group that has missed something to me. And I don't think that missing ingredient is Jeff Jarrett, okay? I don't feel like Sanjay Dutt has been a very effective speaking leader of the group because his delivery is just frantic, high energy rambling. And I don't think it's that great. Satnam is a guy who doesn't wrestle, but he had a great spot last week. Lethal is the only guy who wrestles and he can already speak. So then throwing in another semi-retired wrestler in there who, I suppose is now doing the bulk of the heavy lifting speaking. I guess I just don't exactly know who this faction is supposed to be elevating. Why they decided to put, all the various attributes that each of them offer into this particular group. And I can't really say that the creation of this entire segment was that great either, especially with the Cole Carter would have been somebody that, I can understand. That's the Randy Orton, that's the person you want to elevate coming out of this, but he's not a part of this whole thing. I just, there's been enough criticism over the past week about Jeff Jarrett's appearances on this show. This week certainly didn't aid that at all. I didn't think Jarrett's delivery was that great. I think I could see even that much more, negative attention to it when they announced the match at the pay-per-view with him.
Renee is with Jungle Boy, and he's going to issue a challenge face-to-face with Christian Cage and Luchasaurus on Rampage this Friday. Big push for Rampage, as they're trying to follow up on last week's show. Jon Moxley is out with William Regal. He talks about when he first met Regal when he was 25, how he talked a lot of trash, and he wanted to be just like Regal, feared and respected and a real top guy. So he picked a fight with Regal and got tortured by him, but it taught him where he stood on the food chain, and then later he came back for Regal and took his ear off, his words. And he compares this to where MJF is now, beating MJF at All Out 2 years ago and sent him packing. But now he's back for another shot, and he seems to be having an existential identity crisis. Who is MJF? He talks the talk, but Moxley actually is the one that goes out and does it. And you can't fool me. He calls himself a pillar without knowing what it feels like to have any weight on his shoulders, and he laughs off his nickname of the Devil, stating that he has seen and met the Devil. He has seen some bad people do very bad things. MJF is not that, and wants him to fulfill his potential, carry this company one day, but asks what he has in his guts, because Moxley will bring it out of him in his hometown of Newark. Everything up until now has been easy, is his final message for MJF.
I thought this was a tremendous promo. I liked it more than the MJF one personally. And I feel like it's really, it's almost like not fair because it feels like it comes so naturally to Jon Moxley. It feels almost like you put a microphone in his hand, you turn the camera on, and just like improvising, he can give you something like this. There's something that really stands out to me about this compared to the MJF promo, and it's that like Moxley, when he says these things, somehow it feels incredibly authentic. Even him talking to him about himself as being a multi-millionaire, which is weird to think, a guy who like looks like Jon Moxley is, he's got a lot of zeros in his bank account, and good for him. He deserves it. But when he speaks, it just feels incredibly real and authentic. Whereas with MJF's promo, and again, this is MJF, so probably by design, it feels like a guy playing a baby face. And it's all leading me to think that we are going to get that turn, at least before or at the pay-per-view.
Then we had our next Elite video, and this was only pointing you in one direction, towards Full Gear. We had all these old photos of the Elite with brief appearances by Cody, by Prince Devitt, Kevin Owens, and all the Full Gear graphics and the clock ticking. So this was very much leading you in that direction. And I do think that you save them appearing until the pay-per-view, but making it very clear like what's happening on the pay-per-view. If it's a match, are they just appearing?
You have Pac in the Death Triangle come out and throw down the challenge, or at least like say
that's fine. I hope they set that up by Wednesday and don't like leave it like ambiguous. And they seem to be pretty much sending you in the direction here.
I don't think there's any the only ambiguity, you're right, is whether or not they're in a match. But I would probably safely say that they're
like last week pretty much laid it out of the Death Triangle, like
exactly,
with the leading video.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Hayter and Skye Blue. We have Tony Storm in the blue corner, and then so Blue takes like quite a bit of this match. They go through the commercial. Skye Blue is in a very difficult spot here. She is not over, and she's against someone that the audience is getting more and more behind. So it was kind of a tough spot here. They went almost 7 minutes. Some rough patches at different parts, especially this roundhouse kick that Skye Blue went for that even the announcers kind of called out. But then she rallies with a high cross onto Hayter for a 2 count. Code Red. This is after knocking Rebel and Skye down on the floor. And then Hayter stops her with a boot. And then Skye Blue is on her shoulders, comes off for a Cazadora, and it's caught. And Hayter just yanks her by the arm into the ripcord clothesline, which is a really nice setup for the finisher and showing you the different ways she can go to the finish, and pins her in 647.
Yeah. I mean, I thought overall it was a fun match. we've seen a lot of Sky Blue recently in sort of like multi-man matches, and this was one where she got to a bit more of a chance to kind of show off. I thought there were a lot of really flashy, ambitious things here from her. Maybe not all of it looking super clean, but I mean, I was overall perhaps, you know, a bit more impressed than maybe others were. But
she's got like something as a babyface. I think like it's
they have a lot of people like that in their division, you know, a lot of people with something. It's just about actually like going ahead with them. So yeah, she's another one.
Rampage on Friday. So Brian Cage and Dante Martin is one of the title eliminators. Bandito and Roosh. Archer and Starks was supposed to be on it. We will see what happens there. Orange Cassidy against Lee Johnson for the All-Atlantic title. Nyla Rose's open challenge, and Jungle Boy challenging Luchasaurus and Christian Cage for something at Full Gear. Marvez is with Lance Archer, who takes out Ricky Starks, rams his head into the door, and states that he's not going to make it to Rampage as Marvez screams for help for Ricky Starks. And the main event, Sammy Guevara with Ty Mello taking on Bryan Danielson in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And they have a very fast start. Mello gets in the way of Bryan Danielson's dive, so he goes to the floor, pushes Ty aside, and with that, Guevara whips a chair into Danielson's face, and he is disqualified in about 2 minutes into the match for the first fall. Guevara then attacks Danielson with the microphone to the eye. And when we come back, Danielson is bleeding over the left eye, and Excalibur ties this back to his torn retina that he had back in his ROH days, and that is the focus of Guevara's attack. He lands a knee strike and the GTH, which he just drilled him with, in 7:42, so it is even.
You know, I don't know about you, John. I know it's been many years now since Bryan Danielson has returned, but like, Jesus, like seeing that chair thrown at his head, seeing like that GTH, yeah. Like it still makes me very concerned.
Yeah, the chair was certainly like he just full on just threw it at him. Yeah, I mean it's there were several things in this match that were jarring. Bryce is checking on the eye. This is when Excalibur informs us it will be Sting and Darby against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal in 2022.
Listen, like I feel like we know why Jarrett's here. He's got a backstage role. He's potentially helping out with house shows and all that stuff, of which he seems incredibly qualified. But man, like to put him on the pay-per-view, like I know like Sting maybe kind of needs some sort of like, I don't know, guy that's around his age with that he has some history against to feud with, but like this is only going to build resentment and you know, people questioning, I think, Tony Khan's taste of what the audience really wants, because I just don't know if like Jarrett is really adding any sort of real interest on a pay-per-view.
He's certainly the most polarizing figure and among the most that they've ever hired for this role. I don't think you'd have any of this if it was just a behind-the-scenes role, but it's rightly or wrongly, like it's just what Jeff Jarrett represents to all of these companies he's been to. I think it's just, to many people, it's sort of the antithesis of what they saw this company being 3 years ago. And they're at a stage now where, you know, that they're going this direction and trying this, whether this is a short-term thing or longer. You know, he is in a prominent story now going into this pay-per-view. Yeah.
And again, like he works really well in like a GCW, where I think the same way to me, like Zack Ryder works, like we're representing that other thing in the context of GCW, makes that person really interesting. But because AEW is always in danger of being the next TNA, that bringing somebody so attached and so synonymous with TNA itself in a prominent role like this is only going to get people more concerned that it's headed towards that direction, which is not, like, we're all overreacting a bit, but this is certainly not like the direction that I think people want.
Would you have an issue if he was more earmarked for ROH once that eventually spins off? Like,
yeah, I would, because I think ROH is also very much in danger of being another TNA.
Danielson knocks Guevara down, misses with a swan dive headbutt, and then they deliver these massive chops to one another. Guevara does a reverse cross right into a Basaiku knee. They're both down. Another commercial break. The announcers are suspecting Danielson could also have a broken nose. And then He's delivering kicks to Guevara in the Tree of Woe, and Guevara climbs to the top with a shooting star press to the floor. Then the double jump cutter is caught with an armbar. Danielson turns it to the label lock. Guevara gets to the rope, and then it's Danielson rallying. He goes for another Busaiku knee, but Guevara catches it and turns it into the Lion Tamer as Danielson gets to the rope. And then we see the GTH countered. He hits the Busaiku knee, and he grabs Guevara by the wrists and goes to stomp him. Guevara, with a Greco-Roman knuckle lock, escalates to the top rope and does the Ray moonsault DDT onto Danielson. And I'm just thinking, that's the best finish here. But it's just a 2 count. As he goes to the top for a Senton Atomico, he gets caught by Danielson, more elbows, label lock, and he takes the free arm and locks it behind, so Guevara has no arm to reach the rope, and he submits. 20 minutes and 37 seconds in total to cap off this show. I thought a pretty strong main event, but also one where Danielson certainly took damage in this match too.
Yeah. I mean, it did really make, to me, the match a lot more dramatic because you could buy into the injury that much more, for the rest of it. I thought they did a really good job of setting Bryan up as a real underdog, following the chair shot against Sammy Guevara. And I mean, ultimately, this just kind of resulted in a 1 fall match, at least 1 clean fall match, and perfectly fine for TV. But it was a very good clean fall with the stakes well against Bryan, and Bryan operating at his best, fighting, to overcome them.
And one of the very few DQs that we've had on Dynamite.
Yeah, but in the context of a 2 out of 3 falls, like it's not, you're not leaving anybody unsatisfied because you're getting a pinfall at the end of it all, right? But tremendous match. Very well wrestled. The spots were great. Yeah, really good TV match.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very strong main event that we got. And I think a bit of a more return to form for this Dynamite than last week. Jeff Jarrett notwithstanding that, he's in.
I like last week more, John, and really? I don't, for me, maybe like I didn't dislike last week as much as I think a lot of people. At least I found it a bit more interesting, a bit more newsworthy. I can't say the same about this one. This might not have maybe pissed many people off as much, but last week was fun in the end. Seeing Shibata, seeing Tice or Rick Ross. I had
nothing touched Rick Ross on this week's show. I mean, nothing was at that level.
Yeah, this just kind of felt pretty run of the mill to me, and in fact, kind of skippable, if I have to be honest.
I really like the promo segments for Moxley and MJF. The Saraya one we went over with as well. I think those helped those pay-per-view matches as well. I really enjoyed the main event. Those were 8-man was nice, and that was the show.
Yeah, I liked it, but there's nothing like I'm so excited for like coming out of it where I have to be like, you got to watch this segment.
What feels big to you for the pay-per-view? Like what's kind of grabbed you for Full Gear?
I think that it's the Elite. It's certainly MJF versus Moxley, but like I would actually say like maybe the Elite's return might be a bit more like buzzworthy right now, and that kind of goes to what MJF
I think so too.
Complaining about. Yeah.
Here's the card. We've got 8 matches now. So it's Moxley and MJF, the Acclaimed against Swerve and Our Glory for the tag titles, finals of the Eliminator Tournament, Tony Storm and Jamie Hayter for the interim title, Jericho, Danielson, Claudio, and Sammy Guevara for the ROH title, Jade Cargill against Nyla Rose for the TBS title, Britt Baker against Saraya, and the main event, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal against... someone here on Wikipedia turned it into the OC.
Sure, might as well. You're Sting and Darby. I mean, they're somewhat for life.
Maybe Jeff Jarrett somehow gets the never open weight title when everything shakes out.
Yeah,
he comes back as the Bullet Club's hire to go after Hikuleo at the end.
He is a member, of course. Yeah, I think Saraya's return, it has my interest. Certainly, I want to see what how she is. Storm and Hayter, I think, should be very good, of course. And, the Acclaim versus Swerve and Our Glory, like that's, they've all been incredible thus far. So let's see how they close out the trilogy. So, I mean, it's a good looking card on paper. Yeah.
Yeah. How many more matches are we going to get?
Oh, God, at least 10 more. We're only at 8, John.
So we've only got a week till this pay-per-view. So
they just announced a bunch of them, like, on the Friday at the very end of the show with Excalibur.
Let us open it up now for super chats and for feedback, which can always be left at forum.postwrestling.com as we go live here every Wednesday night. YouTube.com/postwrestling. Subscribe to the channel. You can turn on your notifications and you'll never miss a live broadcast from myself and Mr. Ting. Hit that subscribe button. You're going to make Wai's day. Every time you hit subscribe, he gets a burst of like serotonin.
Yeah, endorphins. I'm wired to it. My phone's got a little device that pings me, and I just go, oh. So, yes. Hey, let's go to the feedback from forum.postwrestling.com. Do you want to start off, John?
Cody from Maine writes, in Boston for tonight's show, as I've been for every Dynamite that's been held here. It's not the largest crowd this building has seen, but hopefully it translated to TV just how lively the crowd was. A very fun show live that set up a lot for Full Gear. Definitely looking forward to that event more after tonight. Apologies to Wai again for maybe the worst penmanship on a sign seen in a long time, as I got to explain to him, I can't attend the meetup at Full Gear, but it was nice to be able to show some support after more than a decade of following you two.
Okay, I did not realize this, but this is Togi, I believe, is how he writes his name. But there the man is right here.
No, that's not poor penmanship. That's how Nick Gage pronounces your name. It's Wai Ting.
That is correct. Yes. No, thank you so much.
That's a hell of an eye.
It's a very big eye.
That's like a block. That's a brick.
Yeah.
Wai Ting.
I think he explained it. He probably didn't space it out enough. It can be very misleading because the W takes up so much space. He centered the A perfectly in the middle of the piece of paper.
I think I know exactly what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's just left with all the space for the I. So I mean, it's really my fault, or my parents' fault, I should say, for naming me this. So, but thank you so much, Cody, for the shout out today. Let's go up next to, see, I lost my space because of all this stuff. Let's go up next to Robbie from London, Ontario, who says, as the Impact fan that I am, I'm just loving Jarrett so far in AEW. I may be the only one, but I always enjoy his work. But a fantastic promo segment from Britt and Saraya. I'm completely back on with that feud. Her emotion got me a couple times, honestly. Fantastic main event. What do you guys see as Sammy's ceiling in AEW? How far could you see him going up the card? 9 out of 10 show, he says.
I see Sammy Guevara's ceiling is extremely high. Like he's
world champion.
In the next 3 to 4 years, I would say like that is a realistic possibility. I think he's a super talent. I think he's 29 right now. Like by the time he's in his like early 33, 34, like he could certainly be at that level in this company. Like I see a potential, very high ceiling for him. He's going to have to make that progression, but I think he's got a lot of the tools that I would see him being able to go very high.
He's a ton of the tools. He's got charisma. He's in ring. He's absolutely incredible. I think there's a comeback story to be told. I think I feel like the public's perception of him right now is that he's an extremely talented person, but like I being involved in a lot of, I think, backstage controversy, some of which are clearly not his fault. So let's be fair to him there.
Mm-hmm.
But simply being attached to it, and I feel like there's still some rehabbing of, at least, I don't know, a public perception that needs to be done.
The whole turns and stuff with Ty, I think it really sent him into a tailspin, because I thought coming out of that second Blood and Guts, he was really primed for the big babyface run. And then it sort of just went sideways with all the Ty stuff this past year that I think just got really, and the Dan Lambert thing, I think, now he's in the role he should be now, but I think ultimately there will be a babyface run for him down the road when they're ready to revisit that. Saeed from Vancouver, enjoyable matches tonight. I might be alone in this, but I just can't stand Double J in 2022. And move of the night goes to Sammy for that amazing DDT. Friend ended up tuning in again, and he said that his favorite wrestler is Sammy and was very impressed with the main event. And he wrote this in the style of Sami Zayn, but I know he means Sammy Guevara tonight, I assume.
Yes. Thank you, Saeed. We go to Kate, who, again, will be the subject of postmarks this week on the Post Wrestling Cafe feed. Kate says, it feels like Full Gear is coming together nicely. Most of the matches feel like they've had at least a decent build, and I hope they're not going to do too much more. We will. We're not getting too much more. We will. Sammy and Bryan have excellent chemistry and delivered another excellent match. The bungled handling of Saraya's in-ring status really hurt what should have been a great reveal, but I'm very happy for her, and I'm looking forward to seeing her return.
And the last one is from Muggin. A good first hour, followed by a topsy-turvy second hour. My TSN feed was acting erratic during the 8-man opener. It made it unwatchable, but by the MJF promo, it smoothed over. The 2 out of 3 falls match was strong, and Guevara isn't the technical wizard that Garcia is, but made his matchup with Danielson stylistically distinct. Saraya's promo announcing her in-ring return had enough emotion to make it a well-done promo, despite the reliance of insider terms. I do have some trepidation about her ring rust. I mean, that's going to be part of the curiosity of how she looks after all these years since wrestling. There will be there's a big spotlight, and doing it, like, there's a lot of pressure on an AEW pay-per-view to perform, as opposed to if she was doing this elsewhere, if this was on TV. Like, that's going to be certainly a very focused upon match that it does feel like one of the bigger matches on the card now.
Agreed.
So there you have it. Thanks, everyone, for the feedback. Thanks for all of you joining us live here in the YouTube chat. Friday night, Rewind to SmackDown. It's Way and I this Friday night, 11 Eastern, after Rampage, after SmackDown. Will the New Day be hoisting those titles, Way, after Indianapolis on Friday, ending the Usos' historic run and only being the second longest reigning champions?
Probably not.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Spoiler. So we will be live for all Post Wrestling Cafe members. I also want to mention that we have several members of the wrestling media that are participating in some Q&As on the site about the Observer Hall of Fame ballot this year. So already up on the site is Alan Forel from the PW Torch site. He is going through the Japanese candidates, and Thursday we'll be dropping another one with the Cubs fan from Lucha Blog, chatting about the Mexican candidates, and we have lined up some others as well. So you can look out for that, covering the different sections of the Observer ballot with some of the utmost expertise that is out there that I have been able to lure in for our Q&A sessions here at postwrestling.com. So thank you to Alan and Cubs fan, and more to come.
Some of the biggest names, in our space. So you're doing a great job of assembling the Avengers of ballot voters. Who else you got coming up? Do you want to reveal or no?
Sure. Well, I've got the Cubs fan, and then for the UK European section, we have got John Lister, who is a great noted author, has reviewed every single wrestling book in history that has been released in the pro wrestling genre. So yes, John Lister, and trying to confirm some others. So
and where's my invite?
I am waiting. You are going to get the prestigious non-wrestler category if you want it.
Ooh, okay.
What are your thoughts on Stanley Weston?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mike Tenay getting your vote?
Mike Tenay, of course. Yes, the professor, of course.
Okay. So there you have it. We'll probably do some show at some point on the Observer Hall of Fame in the weeks to come. But that's going to wrap it up. Again, postwrestling.com/live, November 19th. It's the Post Wrestling 5-year anniversary show. Some real cool stuff we are planning for that day in Newark, New Jersey. MJF's hometown, Newark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Will this turn be part of the new work, maybe, by MJF that has been crafted? That's going to be answered on November 19th. And we hope to see many of you there. Get your tickets now. That's it. Thank you for tuning in to Rewind to Dynamite, and we will speak with you Thursday at 3, the wellness policy, religion,